Hi guys, and welcome back to Brain-Friendly Thinking. This time it's even the correct settings. Great! And as always, as we're waiting for people to join the stream, I will just start with a quick recap of what I've done last week. Last week I looked at a paper that talks about different models of how the brain processes touch information, and I was exploring them by creating kagas, little doodles, little diagrams if you like. Sorry, let me just set things up. Wonderful, great. So there were like two fundamental types of models. There was the embodied model by itself, which says that you cannot really separate sensing from motor response. You need to look at it systemically as a whole. And then there were three others which did actually separate sensing from motor. And those were the representational process and remapping. And for each of them I tried a little kaga. For the representational one, I drew this kaga over here of the finger being stimulated and then the information being passed to the cortex in the brain. Do I need to... and on the cortex, we know this, there is a, it's called a homunculus. It's a little, essentially each part of the body is represented on the surface of the cortex. And what the representational view says, as soon as this lights up, this is when we sense the touch. So I drew something very much. This one is actually the most picture-like of all of them, even though you might not be able to understand what it means unless I tell you. Then for the process one, I drew this much more schematic one here, where I have a kaga with different boxes and arrows connecting the boxes, and little diagrams within the boxes. We have somebody speaking into a telephone handle, then it's been transmitted on the receiving end, it comes out again, and somebody else listens to it. So this is the classical Shannon theory that are used in a lot of different things in telephones and television and internet and so on. But yeah, essentially it's like a stepwise process of you take one thing, take it to the next one, take it to the next one. Good, so that was the second process. Then the remapping is, we have essentially different maps in the brain, and they are remapped into an abstract space, and by that we do the sensing. Cool, so that were the kagas I did last time, and then last time I also did this model here, or this kava, where I tried to put my insights down. Like for M we have a remapping, we have remodeling, which is the remodeling would be this bit over here. We have loops, this would be the one for the embodied design, and then the central questions, is it detachable, yes or no? Okay. So far for what I've done last time. And this is actually, it's actually already been quite a few times. I got the sheets here with the different, what we've done or I've done over the past couple of weeks since beginning of December, if I remember correctly. Already almost 2.5 months. And today I would like to sort of do a consolidation of what I've done in the past. And actually tell you what, usually I'd always do it in my book, but today I'm not going to do it in the book. Today I actually going to do a proper Goethe think. What do I mean by proper Goethe think? Well, I've shown it before in my videos, and also a couple of live streams ago. I've shown it how I'm doing it in the notebook here, where I had it on opposite pages and I divided the lines. But this is actually not exactly, not 100% how Birkenbiel originally introduced it. So let me what she originally did is we take one sheet of A4 paper, and let me turn that around so this on the right side, and we're going to separate this into 3 lanes. That's about 27 is 9, and 9 plus 14, 14 divided by 3 is, let's say 9.5, and then 19.5. Cool. So I first create these 3 lanes here. Good. And I also create one on the opposite side. Sorry. Which would be roughly here. Great, that's how you are supposed to do the Goethe think. And so the topic is still with sensing, with perception, and with robotics. So let's see what will float to the surface today. And I need a timer because the first part is supposed to be 5 minutes long. Well, maximum of 5 minutes. You can do it less than 5 minutes if you want to. So let me put 5 minutes. I always like to do it 5 minutes. Great. So what floats to my mind? Right, let me actually start with detachable. I write this again at the top, detachable. This was sort of where I left it last time. And if it's detachable, it would really, detachable matters for models. Great, so detachable models. And now the question is, if I draw my little black box again, something is coming in, something is going out. The question is, do we have something nicely separated? Or do we have something with feedback loops? Cool, this is detachable. And detachable. So the question is, can I separate perception from motor? Which, of course, I guess in the brain they are actually separated. We have the sensory cortex, we actually have several sensory cortices, and we have the motor cortex. And now detachable, that would also mean, can we what else? So separated in anatomy, but also separated in function question mark, which has some bearings on if we want to implement it in robotics. So if it is separated in function, detachable, if it's separated in function, then I can separate the implementation. What do I want to say? Something is bubbling up, but it's not yet quite coming. Can you read this? Okay, great. So, detachable, and then the question is, with detachability, it is how much do the maps count? Because the thing is, do we even need to implement maps or not? How to process. Great. So, cool. Still got a little bit of time. So I started with this detachability. Detachable. So also what this means is that if it is detachable, then we could have a sensing module, and we could have a motor module. Actually, you know what? Even if it's not detachable, we can always have clear interface descriptions. Okay, clear interface descriptions. What I'm thinking of is something like you have your module A and you have a lot of interfaces going out, and then you have a break and you have module B, a lot of interfaces are coming in, and this thing here is the interface description. Okay, those were 5 minutes. Now before I go to the next 5 minutes, I actually would like to look back at my notes from the last couple of times and see whether there's any specific thought I would like to follow. Not this one here, definitely not noise objective memory. Translation, yes, noise objective memory, okay, great. So let me give myself another 5 minutes and off we go. So there was detachable, that's to the side. Now the second one, and I wanted to think about noise. And let me actually, so there's different types of noise. There is let's do it like this, transmission noise. What's transmission noise? Transmission noise means that our wires have some interference. But what are our wires? Our wires in this case are axons, and that would mean that there is some variation in how the ion channels open, for instance. Yes. So we have points of variation. This is transmission noise, and it's also we also have variation in how the neurotransmitters are released. Okay, we have transmission noise. We also have computation noise, so I call it computation. That's currently the metaphor being used. But really, or processing noise. We have certainly timing noise. Timing noise. We also have, and we know this, we have random firing of neurons, which is actually quite wild. But some of our neurons fire just randomly, which is interesting. And we need to go from this to the neuron population. Noise. Noise means variability. Cool. Yes, do I find any other sources of noise? Or let's say, how do we and the question is, noise degrades the signal, so then the next question becomes, how can noise be filtered out? Be filtered out, question mark. Can we tune the noise? Sorry, I hope this makes some sense. As I'm thinking under time pressure, I don't have so much time to explain. I can explain in a moment, and the time is almost up. Can we tune the noise? And that means if I know what's important, I can optimize. Okay, that's interesting. I can optimize, and that means block distraction or query information. Good. These are the interesting bits. Big how. Okay, those were 5 minutes. Great, now I need an ABC list. Let me just write down the ABC and then I'm going to say something about this. ABC, E, F, H, I, J, K, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, and Z. Great, so I still forget the detachable part. Before I start the ABC, I want to say a few things about the noise and variability. So essentially, what I'm thinking of is that whatever is happening in general is never, we always imagine it in an ideal world where what goes in is also the same thing that goes out. Maybe there is some transformation or something in between, but essentially we always tend to think linearly. But the world is not linearly, and there is definitely variations in. Sorry, let me do this. If I just draw how a neuron looks like, roughly, here's the axon, and then here we have the synapse and the next neuron. there's transmission, and these are actual physical processes. Thinking is not something ethereal, thinking is physical. And whatever is happening physically here, there is some probability distribution. Great, that's what I'm trying to get at with the variability. Now, let me see how I can, let's just say 3 minutes for the ABC list, and let's see what I can come up with. Variability, randomness. Can't really read this, sorry. Let me choose a different pen. Randomness, variability. We have random firing. What is noise? Noise can mean an extra delay. It can, of course, also mean speeding up. It generally means what does it mean? I want to say variation in a different way. It also means I can feel this is not flowing as freely as I thought it would be. Let me just write down harmonics, because we have essentially oscillations. That was the word, oscillations. But we need a signal. We need a signal. Okay. Noise. And we have some sort of function. There's something not quite flowing right now. I have the feeling that my thoughts are always circling around the same topic again and again without me being able to really penetrate it. We have a delay, so we have temporal noise. We also have the amplitude of the signal. The amplitude of the signal that is varying. This is, let me go to, we have filtering. Oops, we can filter out noise. Filtering. We have attention. These are nice words, but what do they mean? They are flowback. Yeah, flowback. Okay. This were the first 3 minutes. Oops. And now, let me turn this over, and this is the original form how Baruch Birkenbiel introduced that. Let me write down another ABC list, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. Even I already know the alphabet, great. S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, and Z, great. And now this ABC list goes back to what I've written down here, which is all about detachable and interface. Let's go. So we have interface, we have loops, we have information flow, formation flow, we have hand over points. Great. Good. Good. We have populations. We have something detectable. We can measure the output. Measurement. We have a function here as well. That too is not flowing as freely as I had hoped. Okay. Detachable. Well, we have maybe atomic functions. We have atomic functions. And we have integrated functions. But what does integrated mean? That is the main question, I think. Sensory motor. We have the anatomy. We have the anatomy. We have a mapping. We have a mapping between the two. Great. We have a mapping. We have something like a formal specification. We have requirements. Or we can put it into the form of requirements. This whole thing here is way more engineering. Which is of course why I think we can transfer to robotics in the first place. We have a transformation. Great. Great. Anything else that comes to mind? Those were the 3 minutes. And now now I got all of this part here to either do a kava or a kaga. But for that I would need to know what have I actually arrived at. Should I put noise as the kava? Does the chat have any idea of what to do? We can make this interactive. Any questions you might have? Good. Do I want to have a model again? Do I want to have model again? Do I want to have noise? There's something that comes to my mind, and that is when I said about filtering. There's something that comes to mind that we can use the outputs of, if I do a very abstract kaga again. Here are 2 functional blocks that can somehow be associated to brain regions. Here we have region 1 and here we have region 2. Cool, and this represents function 1, or let's call it function A, and function B. Now whatever is happening in region 2 in function B can potentially, I should always be careful, can potentially influence what's happening in function A. So the output of function A goes to function B, and function B, actually let me not draw it like this, goes back to the input of function A, and then we have the input here and we have another output. Great. And what I said is that in the end we have a certain we have a certain function. This here is time, this axis, and the other action is axis is some form of amplitude. Great. And of course we also have the same thing in the input. This is not flowing freely. So the question is, why is it not flowing freely? What is blocking it? Let's actually go back to the very beginning and see what I'm actually trying to do. I started off with a car var on robotics, where I said that we have the brain, we have the control system of a robot, and I want to transfer one to the other. We have inputs and outputs, we have tasks, and we have a structured network. Good. Then the next one, I started to think about the different stages. And I said I want to consolidate the functional architecture. I talked about this transformation. Yeah, in the end it always comes down to the same thing. I actually do feel like I want to do a carver of noise. Why do I want to do a carver of noise? Because that seems to be the most important thing. So, noise is we have an input-output relationship. We don't have R. Okay. Input, output relationship. And that's important because that's something we can measure. But it's a messy relationship. What's another word? I don't have M for messy. What's another word for messy? Messy, chaotic. I don't have C either. Chaotic, messy. Random. I don't have an R. What about relationship? Messy. What else can I say about noise? You can filter out. Okay, I can say filter out noise. How does that actually work? So you have something of a spectrum. You have a probability. You have a cluster. You have a cluster. Good. So but the brain somehow needs to deal with noise. I know that we essentially have something of this kind here. We have something of a bifurcation Do I want to write down something like knowledge? The brain somehow needs to know what is out there in the real world. And I say real world as if that means anything. I don't have an I, I don't have a W. But I have an O, I have the outside world. Okay, great. I have the outside world. And then I have some sort of response. I need to be able to detect something, recognize something. Huh. Okay. Okay. Let's see. You have a spectrum. What does spectrum actually mean? Maybe if I draw some kagas here, it might help. Really. Huh. You have a decision. Today not a lot of things are coming. Well, that happens sometimes. I keep thinking back to this part here. Specifically this, what I called a topological transformation. Because if I go back to this and I say I'm starting with a cup. Let's just say I'm starting with a cup. This is what one function, the input of one function, and then this function is supposed to return a donut. So, but it's not going to return a donut, obviously. It's going to return something like that. This is the noisy part. And now, so let's say this is the reality, whatever reality is, but this is what's happening in the outside world. Reality, we have the transformation. This one here would be function A. And this one here is the input, this is the input for function B. This is the input for function B. And now function B, they need to decide. They need to decide either donut or something else. The question is, so I definitely know that noise is a something extra. Let's call that an extra component. E like extra component. Because what have I really drawn here? I've drawn something round and then I added something on the outside. This here is function B. Function B. Yes, expectation, okay. It is about what I'm expecting. If I'm expecting to get a donut, and then it's much easier to recognize this shape here as a donut. If I'm expecting something else, then maybe it's not so obvious. Expectation. How can you actually reduce noise? We can filter the noise out, but you can also improve the measurement. Improve measurement. Cool. That's not really helping me, is it? It is not really helping me. No, I'm not getting anywhere today. Interesting. Something is blocked. Well, there are two possibilities. Trying to analyze my own state of mind. Two possibilities. Possibility number one. Something within me is blocked. Possibility number two. I'm lacking knowledge. And I'm almost tending towards believing that the second part is the real culprit here. Yeah, that's funny in a way. I made some progress over the past couple of weeks, but not really. I'm still at the surface level. I'm still at the surface level. I'm still at the metaphorical level. How can I break through this? How can I break through this? Well, if I'm lacking knowledge, maybe I can just sum up what I know. What I know is that the response depends on what? It depends on question asked. It also depends on how the question is asked. Can I somehow make that more concrete? Yes, I'm thinking of something. There's some knowledge I know I have, and that's not forthcoming at the moment. Sorry, just one moment. Just one moment. Cool. Let me read through some of my zettles. Foster tested tactile spatial attention. For that, participants had to detect weak stimuli to the distal or middle phalanx of the index finger. So these two chaps here. While ignoring strong stimuli and stimuli to the middle finger. This location was specifically chosen as blind people use this area for reading Braille. Contrary to the auditory domain, previous studies had failed to differentiate. EEG analysis showed that the P100 and M140 components were enhanced in blind participants. Okay. Okay. Right. So let's start to make a list. EEG, amplitude, up, and ignoring stimuli. No, I don't know. I can't help it. At the moment, this doesn't feel right. Which is odd, because the last couple of times when I had this live stream, I've always run out of time before I ran out of ideas. But today, things are not coming. I'm sort of circling around the same ideas again and again, and I'm not getting anywhere. I guess that's how it is sometimes. It's not nice. And I know you expected more today, but this is live thinking. What can you do? I might actually call it here today because I don't think I'm getting anywhere. But I see I have at least one viewer right now, so if you have any questions about what I said, about the techniques I used or anything, feel free to ask them in the chat. Otherwise, next week there won't be a live stream because I'm not available, and the week after I will probably not continue this type of live stream, but I will do something of a lessons learned. I will look back over the past couple of live streams from a different point of view. Today I try to look at it from the content point of view, and I try to summarize something I had arrived at. Next time I will use it on a meta level and say what I learned by doing these live streams. So, the last viewer has left the stream. I finally managed to scare everybody away. Then this is a good point to stop. Well, today it didn't flow so well. What would you know? But one thing that you should take from this is that if that happens to you, it does not necessarily mean that you are stupid or whatever. It just sometimes it flows, sometimes it doesn't. Okay, nevertheless, if you found this video useful, please don't forget to give the like button a high five. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. And until next time, keep thinking. Cool, I can't even stop. Today is one of